So, hello and welcome to our latest episode of the Kith Kin Podcast, Stories from the Hospitality Industry. And I'm really happy to be welcoming Ines here to tell us all about the ups and downs that have brought her to where she is and what makes the hospitality industry so great and so special. So, hi, thank you so much for coming and joining me with this conversation. So, can we just get started with an introduction to who you are and what you do?
Perfect. My name is Ines. Great meeting you, Cassie, and great. Thank you so much for the invitation. I've been in the restaurant sector or hospitality industry for the past 25 years. So that tells you a little bit how old I am. And my focus for the past, 25 years have been working for restaurant brands, supporting them with pricing and strategy. So actually, that's my experience in pricing, 25 years, but I worked prior to moving into pricing. I worked in operations for another 7 years, 8 years before that. So yeah, that's me.
And I am absolutely fascinated by pricing strategy because I think that is it, and it's one of those wonderful things in hospitality that and people don't realize this until you're in it, just how vast and wide the industry is and how many different careers and options there are for people to take once you get into hospitality. So I'm absolutely fascinated by that, and also because you're working with big corporations, but actually, so I mean, of course, obviously, you know, the price, you don't think of it, but of course they have pricing strategies and they need people like you to support to do that. But actually, my speciality is independent hospitality businesses, so much at the smaller end of that, but actually pricing strategy comes into that as well. And so I'm absolutely fascinated with that. But first of all, I want to find out how you got into the industry. So go right back to the very beginning, how you got into the industry and that story of I guess really how you fell in love with hospitality.
I fell in love with the hospitality industry because my parents had a couple of friends that owned restaurants, and we would go to their restaurants on Sundays for lunch. And I always found it fascinating when we arrived, how welcome we felt. And yeah, the owners were our friends, right? But I observed and saw that same treatment was given to absolutely everyone walking through the door. So for me, that social component was incredible. Then it was when we were sitting at the table and receiving food that was incredible. And that whole experience and that joy of being with my family, B, eating some amazing food and just having fun. So then that became so attractive to me, that whole experience that, okay, this is what I want to do when I grow up, kind of thing. So I told my parents that's what I want.
So it's that whole feeling of belonging, isn't it? And feeling spoilt. Yeah.
Exactly. But it was also, to see the face of the restaurant owners when they were able to put that smile on their customers. That was, to me, very, wow, this is fun. This is fun. I never thought really about the business side of it, right? It was more about, wow, this is incredible. This is what I want to do. I love this, and I love to be in beautiful environments, and just surrounded by joy, right? Because at the end, when someone goes to a restaurant, people go either for business meetings or to meet friends and family. I mean, it's rare when you have someone that just goes to a restaurant because they're really hungry and they just want to eat and get out.
Yeah.
There are some segments for that, right? But most of them is about having something good and having a good time.
Yeah.
So I told my parents that I wanted to do that. That's what I wanted to do. And my mother, very pragmatic, she said, yeah, but you need an education to do that. I'm like, well, okay. And she's like, and the only school for that is like 45 minutes away from where we live, and that's too far. I'm like, oh. She's like, yeah, no, you should look for something else. So I decided, okay, well, I'll study economy. I thought, okay, I could make somehow a transition somehow there. So I went to, and this is in Caracas, Venezuela. That's where I was born. But then I went to the U.S. 1 year to learn English. And there I went to a career fair because I was a high school student at the time. And there was a university that had hotel and restaurant management as a degree, as a program. So I started talking to them, and out of just curiosity, I applied. I was accepted, and I even got a scholarship to go to school there. So I told my parents, and I said, look, this is what I really want to do. My parents said, okay, fine. And financially, if you're able to do this because you got the scholarship, then go for it, right? So anyways, my mom always jokes. My mom always jokes that, oh my gosh, I didn't want you to go 45 minutes away. And now you went a whole different country. So that was a bit crazy. So in between all my university, like the summers, I will always go back to Venezuela and work at my friend's restaurant. Yeah. So I was either a host or a server. And the more I did those kind of jobs and saw how the kitchen worked and the communication between the kitchen people and the front of the house people, I found that fascinating. So it just reinforced my joy to be in the hospitality industry. So then I joined, after graduation, I joined Compass, and I went to work for one of their business accounts in Texas at Southwest Texas University. So I went there as an associate director for their food and beverage division. And it was fun. I loved it. And funny enough, the long hours, the having to clean kitchens or having to clean things because people didn't show up or because someone got sick or something, that did not take that joy away. Quite the opposite. I thought that it was really rewarding, regardless what type of job you were doing throughout the day. But there was something fun about seeing the students coming in and giving them the food, and sometimes hearing them complain about it or actually saying, wow, this is fantastic. So that component was there and I loved it. But I think what I loved the most was the interaction with the people that worked with me. So you had people that were very, very humble, people that came from very, very low income areas, but that they were really wanting to get ahead and provide an amazing service to their customers. So I found that rewarding from the two components, right? The component of the customer, but the rewarding also of the people that you work with. But then I decided that maybe Texas wasn't the place for me.
Just going back, but that's absolutely fascinating. Because I think that is it's very difficult for people who aren't in the industry to understand actually this sort of driving purpose that people have, even if, as you say, even if what you're doing is just washing the dishes or cleaning the floors, actually you still feel that you are serving others, and that becomes part of the mission, that everyone's in it together. So this team camaraderie is really part of the joy, but it's also the joy of watching, even if it was just you cleaning the floors, watching other people experience something that together you've all created. It's exciting. It's exciting. It is exciting at all levels in the industry, isn't it?
I think so, and it's just, I mean, and you know how it is when you work in restaurants or in other areas of the hospitality business. I mean, the pressure and the intensity peaks, right, during lunch hour, breakfast, lunch, and dinner, right? So there's always this rush about getting it done well, and then poof, then it goes down because then you close the business or you close the service. But all those peaks and knowing that you're working to get something done because there's a very specific limited time that you need to deliver this, I think that also adds to it, right? That pressure and the challenges of being able to achieve that successfully. So that's reinforced my, okay, I want to stay in this business, right? But I didn't want to live in Texas that was not for me. So then I joined, oddly enough, a hotel business or a resort business called Club Med. I don't know if
Yeah.
you heard of
Yeah.
them or if
Yes.
you've been
Yeah.
to
No, I've heard
one.
of, yeah. No, I
So,
haven't been to one. But
so
I've
this
heard.
was the early 90s. I- I've seen things and experienced things that right now are not legal. Thank God.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
joined.
Well, yeah. Let's just jump over those. That's not the.
Yeah. So when I joined them, they sent me to a resort to manage their specialty restaurant in Mexico in the Pacific side. And the type of work that you do there is that you work and live in the resort. You do your function. Mine was managing the restaurant, but you also have to live and do things with the guests. So you're part of
Yeah.
the guest experience. So that was a lot of fun. And for someone that was 24 at the time, I
Yeah.
would go to
Wow.
work wearing my swimming suit and apparel or something like that. It was so much fun. So I loved that, and I did that for 2 years. But at the time, there was no TVs in the rooms, no phones, nothing. It was like, seriously, you were
Yeah.
out there. You did not know what was happening in the world. So I did that for 2 years,
Yeah.
and I thought, okay, I need to go back to reality. This is fun, but I need to go back to reality. So I went back to Venezuela, and I joined Intercontinental Hotels as an assistant food and beverage director for their property. At the time, it was the most revenue generator property for Intercontinental within the Americas, or Central America, South America. It was very demanding. It was great. And I had to work with many different backgrounds again. And I was working for a serious hotel. So that added another layer of to my experience. One of the things that I found really difficult was that for some reason, and I didn't know that was the law, you only get 1 day off a week. And we were two assistant food and beverage managers. And so what we decided was, okay, so what if we work straight for 2 weeks? And then
Yeah.
we
Oh,
each
wow.
get 2 days off.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
I
Yeah.
was like, okay, let's do that, right? So we were doing that, and I remember working, I don't know, 60, 70, 80 hours a week, depending, right?
Yeah.
The
Yeah.
events that we had in the hotel. And at that point, I decided, okay, I love this. I really, really want to continue being in this industry. But I don't think this is the amount of hours that I want to work. I don't think as a woman, and I thought at that point, I would like to have a family. I'm working Christmas Day, Christmas Eve, New Year's Day, New Year's Eve. Is going to sustain the life, the family life that I would like to have. So I thought, okay, well, I'm going to go back to school. Go ahead.
I think that's really interesting, because I think that that's actually been the way of the industry, certainly back then. I mean, I know that the industry has improved standards, and those conditions
And
are not quite as bad these days. Well, apart from anything else, you've got a new generation of people who won't tolerate those kind of things. But I mean, I was recently at an event, and I said, back in the days when I was doing 80-hour weeks, and even I had to go, how could I have possibly been working 80-hour weeks? But we
exactly.
did. That's what it was. It was the expectation in the
Yeah.
industry. A full-time job meant you worked 60 hours minimum. If you didn't work 60 hours, you weren't considered full time, which is I just find that, because it's not that long ago. You just think, wow, that's crazy that we did that. But I think it's really interesting what you're saying,
Yeah.
having to make that choice. I love this, but it's not sustainable. It's not good for my health. It's not good for me to have any life at all outside of this industry. And I think so
Yeah.
many people had to make those decisions. And I think, interestingly, because you're talking about being a woman and looking at having a family. But actually,
Yeah.
I think, I don't know because I've not done the research, but I
Yeah.
think that is the really key insight into why so few women are in those higher levels in hospitality. Because in actual fact, across hospitality, and I think this is certainly true in the UK, but I imagine it's true worldwide. But across hospitality, there's more women in the industry but they're not represented in those higher levels. And I think part of it is because of those choices, a difficult choice to make, that actually in order to even stay in the industry, you had to have been committing to these extreme long hours and extreme work conditions, which were just not conducive to having any life outside of work, never mind having a family. So I think that's quite a common a decision that a lot of, I think, I mean, it's not just women that make the decision to leave the industry at that point or to go to a different area of the industry at that point. But I think it's particularly women that have had to make those decisions historically. As I say, I hope, and I think the industry has changed since then. But yeah, I think it's an interesting observation.
Yeah, because it was the long hours. It was also, it's a male-dominated industry. It is changing now, but I felt, gosh, I want to make a difference. I want to be in this industry. I don't want to leave it, but there are things about it that I don't think are good for me. So I need to figure a different route to get to where I want to get, but staying here, right? So I was fortunate that I applied to get a master's degree at Cornell University to do a Master of Management in Hospitality. So it's similar to an MBA, but with a focus on the service industry, right? So for me, that was like, this is it. This will allow me to get to the roles I want to get in the time frame that I want to achieve it. I know operations, but I don't want to spend that much time in operations because it's extremely demanding, demanding.
Yeah,
especially when you want it to be very successful, right? Attention to detail is there. You need to train people. You need to be there. You need to invest into being present within the industry. So I did that. And during that time, I also started working with Four Seasons hotels, and I joined their food and beverage department. So after graduation from my master's degree, I went to Boston to the Four Seasons hotel there, and I was working in the food and beverage division. And again, I loved it. Clientele, super high end, very demanding in terms of the service that we needed to provide. Everything needed to be very, very high end. And I loved it, right? But I also, during university, I learned about pricing. One of my professors at the time, he had founded a pricing consultancy for the restaurant sector. So I had a conversation with him after I joined Four Seasons, and he's like, why don't you come and try and see what is it that we do? And then he showed me what they were doing. And I thought, gosh, this is like the perfect blend for me, because you need to know operations. You need to have a knowledge of this industry, but you're adding a lot of science to it, which was the data insights, right? So navigating at the time, this is year 2000, word big data really didn't exist, but it was starting to be present there, right? The .com, the boom, the .com, that was the time. So I transitioned from operations into consulting, and for me that was the best route. And I stayed, and I'm still there, and I will continue to be there for God knows how many more years. But it's that joy of being able to deliver, regardless in which area you deliver it, but good service is incredible, right? Because when you are in a restaurant, it's about delivering the experience, the service to your customers and to the people you work with. And now in consulting, it's the same thing. You want to deliver that amazing experience to your clients with the people that you work with. And at the same time, you have a really good understanding of the service that they're delivering to their customers. So it's fantastic. And I think a lot of young people sometimes do not see that it's all about service. And there's this hotelier in the US in the early 1900s, Ellsworth Statler, who said something that has become the motto of one of the universities I attended, which is life is service. The one who progresses is the one who gives his fellow men a little more, a little better service. And it's absolutely true, right? So if you think about everything that we do, it's about how can we give it better? Because it's extremely rewarding when you deliver whatever it is that you're working on or industry, when you deliver something and it's super well received, it makes an impact on your client or your customer. It's just extremely rewarding. And at the end, that's what it's all about, right? To ensure that everyone is having joy.
And I'm certain, obviously, because you've come from that operations side into this consultancy, your genuine, true understanding of the experiences of your clients is there, which I'm sure makes a huge impact on your ability to be able to deliver for them. But let me just say, I'm really fascinated by what you do with developing pricing strategies. So I know you work with obviously big restaurant groups, but I imagine there's some smaller ones in there as well. But when you are going in with a new client, what are the questions that you're asking them or they're asking of you in terms of them developing these pricing strategies? What are the elements that go into creating that strategy?
Well, it's not a mystery, right? But the restaurant sector and hospitality margins are razor thin, very, very difficult to be profitable in the industry. And the only way that you can really provide an amazing experience is by generating profits. So then you can train your staff, you can provide the best ingredients, you can have the most beautiful places. So it does require money, and people sometimes don't like to talk about that. But that's the truth, right? So the questions that I would have when I start working with a brand is, okay, so what does the brand stand for, right? What is it that you want your customers to walk away with? What is it that you want your employees to walk away with? And then we start looking, okay, so where are some of those opportunities where you could improve profitability without losing your customers? Because at the end, that's how you make money, right? It's through people coming to the door. So we start looking for areas that have been untapped, that potentially there's more opportunity than what the brand thought of at the beginning. Identify those areas where there's no opportunity. And even if they think that they can increase prices there, it's a no. You will lose customers if you do that. So it's evaluating where the opportunities are, right? But ultimately, what we're trying to do is support, or what I'm trying to do is to support the brands that I work with so they can stay in business and they can be profitable enough that they can plan for growth, that they can invest it back into their employees, into how they deliver what they're good at delivering.
So fundamentally, the first thing is those organizations, they absolutely need to know who their customers are. So they need to be able to tell you who their customer. Well, I mean, I guess you work it out, but actually them having a really good understanding of their customers is important. But also, as you say, them understanding what their brand is and what the purpose is. What is it that their customers are coming in for? Because we were talking, just a bit earlier, so that those places where people just go to get something to eat, they don't really exist. There's very few places like that people are just coming for that purpose. They're coming for something. There's other reasons why people go to a restaurant or to a hospitality venue. So I guess knowing those two things is really, really key. But I'm imagining, and I'm just imagining, I don't know, you have to tell me, but I'm imagining that actually these days that genuine data insight comes into it quite a lot now. So you can actually, particularly for these bigger organizations, although I know actually small organizations can access that customer data quite easily these days. I imagine data is quite an important sort of starting point for what you're doing.
And that's exactly what it's all about, right? When I started working in pricing, it was year 2000, and it was all data driven back then. I think, I don't know if you and I are in the same generation, but we have seen incredible changes, changes from not having technology to having now a significant amount of technology that enables analysis, that enables businesses to be more efficient at what they're doing, right? And God knows what's going to be in the future in terms of technology within the restaurant or hospitality business, but it will continue to be radical in terms of change. And right now, it used to be bigger brands are the ones that can focus on doing data-driven insights so they can generate solutions for their business that are all fact-based. Now, smaller brands can do that as well, right? AI is doing incredible things to enable businesses to analyze their own data. And when I say analyze their own data, is the transaction, right? You get a ticket every time you sell something. So, let's analyze that ticket. What are people buying? What are the products that they buy together? How frequently are these products being bought? What happens when we change the price? Do we see less demand, more demand? What happens when we introduce new products, when we delete products, when we change products from placement in the menu or on the menu board? So there's so many different things that can be analyzed to understand the true impact of those changes, so then you can plan better your future. And that's all data driven. So for young people, there is such a now opportunity of roles within the restaurant sector, within the hospitality business, that it may not necessarily be 100% operation, but you do need to know operations a little bit to be able to understand what it is that the numbers are saying, right? Because sometimes the numbers say something, but it's like, dude, it was raining outside. That's why. Or it got very cold, or you run out of a particular product. That's why you're not selling it, not because people don't like it. It's the opposite, right? Or you are full capacity. So there are so many different things that young people or that new generation that is coming into the restaurant sector or hotels. It's not just operations. There's so much more.
Yeah, and I think it's so exciting actually, because there is so much opportunity there to really, and as going back to that thing, I think you said, it starts from that point of understanding who your customer is and knowing what it is you want to achieve with your business. But actually, the ability to be able to use data is extraordinary, and just growing as people sort of realize actually how much they can. And it is because we've got AI. Particularly, I work in independent with independent small businesses. So actually, you're talking about owners saying, well, I haven't got time to do that. I mean, I know when I first started, and we are the same generation. Our card payments, I was literally showing someone the other day, used to be made with, pieces of paper, and you used to scan the card, card and fill it in by, yeah. And so the idea of being able to track people's payments, but these days, even the cost for a small business to be able to access the payment data of their customers in terms of where their customers are, not just what they're spending with them, but where else they're spending that money. Even the cost of that has come down massively, so that is accessible to everybody, not just the big organizations anymore. Yeah. The wealth of data that you can get, but you do need AI to be able to filter that and organize it and be able to, so you can ask AI the question, what does this mean? I mean, and I've had this conversation. I mean, we're recording this in February now, and I've been talking to lots of operators about, how things have been, and everyone's going, up and down. Some people are saying January has been great compared to previous years, and some saying it hasn't been. And I'm sitting there going, but actually, one of the biggest, it might not be the month of the year. It might be that this January has been incredibly rainy. Is it, when you're comparing data, are you comparing like for like? And it's a bit, previously to an operator, that would have been a difficult question to ask, or a lot of information to try and sort through. But now it's actually quite quick to be able to get the answers to those questions, to understand what is having the biggest impact on your business. So,
Yeah,
and I guess it's the same when you're doing pricing.
Yeah, absolutely. And one of the things that, COVID was a terrible thing for the sector, horrendous, not just for the hospitality industry, but for many other sectors, right? But there are some positive about COVID. And one of the positives for the restaurant or hospitality sector, mostly for restaurants, is how the integration of technology, advanced technology, went up, right? This is an industry that used to be very, slow at adapting technology into their business, cost, of course, but also resistance to it. And COVID just drove that years and years ahead as a result, because they needed the technology to be able to remain open. So that was a positive. The technology now is there. It's more affordable. It can be done. You still need some level of skills, but not necessarily as you need a data scientist, right? You can use AI to do some of these more advanced analytics. But it's an industry that has always been, and this thankfully is changing, very gut feel driven.
Yeah.
We're going to do this because I think it's going to work. And it's like, well, let's test that first, or let's evaluate if that's actually true with some facts. And thankfully that is changing. Now you see very successful operators that will not make a decision like that because that's what the gut is telling them. But it used to be like that. It used to be like that.
So from your job and what you do when you come into an organization, it is a lot of taking an idea and testing it and analyzing what might work before it gets rolled out.
Well, it depends, right? It depends the type of scale of change that is, right? But I think it's a combination of both. It's a combination of testing. It's a combination of evaluating what they have done in the past, because that will clearly tell you what can be done in the future.
Yeah.
But also understanding, okay, what are the objectives? What is it that you put within your brand strategy or your restaurant strategy that you want to achieve this year, in 2 years from now, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, all the way to 10. So how can we help you get there in a way that will be successful? So it all depends. People think pricing is just putting price points on products. That's not only that. It's more about to think about how do you do the pricing? When do you do it? Who is involved in that decision making? How do you monitor all of that? So it's a process that businesses need to start embedding in their day-to-day operations. And that's some of the areas that, I help them out. It's not just about putting a price point, but also helping them define their own strategy to support their business growth.
And then obviously also there's the element of then communicating to the customers as well, isn't it?
Oh my gosh, so critical.
You can just go, ta-da, and they just go, what? And you can scare people, but actually there are ways of managing change, which...
Price communication is so critical and so often forgotten. And what kills me is that sometimes brands don't think about how they communicate their pricing decisions to their own staff, to their own front of the house people, to the people that are going to be the receiving feedback of which prices, or, wow, this is really expensive.
Yeah.
Teach them to talk about pricing when they're being questioned by customers. Give them the script that they need or the tools that they need to be able to be confident about talking about it without sounding that they have no idea what's going on and someone else made that decision, right? I remember being at a restaurant, and this killed me. I remember being at a restaurant where we arrived and we were ordering, and the employee, the waiter said to us, they just changed prices, so it's going to be more expensive this time. And we're like, okay. most likely we would have not noticed
No,
because
of course. Yeah.
that's going to break us, right? But he told us that, and we're like, okay, thank you. Oh my
Brilliant.
gosh. But yeah,
Break it.
communication is extremely important. Managing
Yeah.
perception is extremely important. And the
Yeah,
front of the
absolutely.
house people are key.
So what's that? What types of companies come to you to be supported? Is it just the big chains, or is it smaller organizations as well?
It used to be big brands, right? So brands with over 1,000 units or brands with over 500 units. But now more and more, as you mentioned, there's more technology available for smaller brands. The smaller brands are seeing the importance of, especially with all these changes, inflation and what's happening in April. They recognize that there are people out there that can help them out make better decisions when it comes to pricing, right? So it depends on how many units, but I would say the smallest brand that we have worked or I have worked with has at least 10 units. And then conversations with other brands that are smaller is more about, okay, how do you plan for your future? How do you build some of the foundations? Start thinking about it. So when you are at a bigger scale, you can start applying a bit more science into your price decision making.
Yeah, amazing. So, in people's stories of how they get to where they get to, nothing is always. I mean, we've literally had 30 minutes for you to tell your story and then to dive into it. So it's been a straight line, but obviously there's ups and downs along the way. And I just, just to sort of illustrate to listeners for everybody there are those ups and downs. I was just wondering if you would be prepared to share with us, perhaps, one of those missteps that you've taken along the way that sort of stands out.
Yeah. I was thinking very hard about that. And I don't know if I'm seeing my career with rose, how do you call it? Rose lenses?
Rose tinted glasses, yeah.
Yes. Yeah. Or why? Because I cannot think of times where I just messed up so badly that something shook me, right? I think I have messed up for sure. And I think one of my biggest mistakes or regrets or things that, if I could go back and I will do it differently, would be on how I reacted or how I felt during high stress moments. We have a lot of those in the industry. And sometimes we talk to each other in a way that we shouldn't. And it's accepted. Well, maybe not anymore, but it used to be.
Yeah.
It used to be, right? And when you see some shows, I don't know if you have seen The Bear, and you see people talk to each other in the kitchen in that manner. Yeah, it's not a lie. It's true. You react and you say things, and that's not acceptable. And I think I could have had a better or a bigger impact on stopping things like that, right? So that's one of the things that when I think back, is like, oh gosh, what would I have done differently? And I think that's one of them. The other ones are just rookie mistakes, are things that you do. You forgot to order something, right? And then all of a sudden it's like, we need to 86 this.
Yeah. But as you're saying before about dealing with, I think one of the wonderful things, one of the additional, I mean, there's so many wonderful things about starting a career in hospitality, but I think that hospitality creates people who are particularly able to handle stress and build those with that resilience, but also learn these skills actually. And you only learn those skills by making those mistakes. When you stand by, when you think actually I should step in, or you react in a way that you think, God, I really should, that's embarrassing that I reacted like that. And they're lessons that you learn, aren't they? But I think all of us, particularly when it was more acceptable to behave like that, there were times I worked in kitchens and you're sitting there going, is this really acceptable behavior? But, but the fact that so many of us looked at that and said, this isn't acceptable, is it? Is why the industry changed, but also why we're so resilient. Yes, my goodness, exactly.
And the resilience is incredible. And another thing that I believe the industry gives us is that ability to work with a very diverse group of people, right? Different nationalities, different personalities. It's always a motley crew in terms of the people that you work with. And when you get into a management role, you better know how to manage different personalities, different cultures, because otherwise the business is going to go down, right? You're not going to get a great experience. You're not going to be able to deliver a great experience for your employees or your support staff, right? So I think that ability to work in a very diverse environment is incredible.
Ines, thank you so much for your time. It's been an absolute pleasure talking to you and hearing your passion and even I love the story of how you fell in love with the industry. You know, just those I'm actually even in my head imagining that little restaurant and you younger really soaking all of that in, because I think it is the joy of the industry, and it's also why so many of us want to be involved in it. It's the recreation of some of those earlier experiences that I think a lot of us are driven to do, because we felt that emotional connection to those places. But just before we leave, could you just, if people want to get in touch with you, pick your brain some more, find out more about you, how can people get in touch?
I'll send you my my personal email address. So I'm more than happy to have any conversations about, different paths, different roles in the industry, or anything that is related to their careers or anything really. I'm more than happy to talk about it. I love this industry. I think it provides really good skill set, even if you transition out of it. You will be a much better professional because you were in the industry. So yes, I'll share you my email address.
Fantastic.
Anyone can reach.
Fantastic. And I'll also put your LinkedIn details into the show notes as well, so that people can click through there and find out more about you. But thank you so much for your time. It really has been an absolute genuine pleasure. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Great meeting you, and thank you for the opportunity. Bye.